Construction of a 16-foot tall dune across the entire beach side of the Wildwoods have been in the works for over a decade now, and things are getting closer and closer for it to happening. But there's been a lot of concerns, there's been a lot of questions, a lot of people trying to figure out what the heck is this project titled the Hereford Inlet to Cape May Inlet project, aka the 5 Mile Island project. And I figured, let's go ahead and break it down because there's a lot of history about this project. There's a lot that could be happening down here, such as losing about 800 and 900 feet of the beach in Wildwood and or in Wildwood Crest. And so there's been a lot of concern. I've gotten a lot of messages. So I figured let's break it down. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe, you turn on notifications, and you give this video a thumbs up. Let's get started. So we need to back up. We need to go all the way back to Hurricane Sandy. You may remember that that was such a horrible hurricane, or ultimately just a tropical storm that hit New Jersey. And in it, it caused so much damage. While we didn't get it as bad here in the Wildwoods, there was still some damage. North Jersey was shredded. It was, I mean, you can look it up. You've seen how bad it was. And when that came through, the state of New Jersey realized that there really wasn't enough protection to help out a lot of these shore towns, and really every single shore town. And so they went to the Army Corps of Engineers and started bringing up different plans of what could be done to protect a lot of these towns. And for the most part, it was a mix of doing beach replenishment projects, building bulkheads, and most importantly, build up dunes. When you build up dunes with natural vegetation, the right beam and berth and all this stuff, it could really prevent any really big storm to come through, or it would stop said storm long enough so that construction could work on another one. This is one of those things that is usually done in beach towns to save property. Because you're probably realizing, yeah, it's probably cheaper to build a dune versus maybe rebuilding a couple blocks of houses that were destroyed because of a hurricane. And so since 2016, we've seen every single shore town in the state of New Jersey get some kind of project, whether it be bulkheads, whether it be replenishments, whether it be some kind of other dune system. The only towns that are left in the entire state of New Jersey without a project is the Wildwoods. We are the last. And that's because of a few different factors that have been going into all of this. A lot of it has to deal with different property types and giving permissions to the Army Corps of Engineers in the state to build said bulkhead. So let's back up a little bit here. For those who have been asking about North Wildwood and its projects going on, this project in particular technically doesn't deal with all the issues we've been seeing. It does, but it doesn't. This entire 5 Mile Island project really goes back to Sandy, something that should have been done from there. The North Wildwood thing is just an always rotating thing in which, yes, they need sand because of erosion and the way that things have been. And North Wildwood already said multiple times, we're happy to dredge the inlet, but the DEP says you can't do that. And usually the way that we get some sand, if we can't dredge, which we luckily did get one this past year, is by taking sand and backpassing it from either Wildwood or Wildwood Crest, putting it on trucks and bringing it back to North Wildwood and laying that down. And that was a good system for a while, but then after a while, unfortunately, there was too much erosion, it would never work. This system here, I want you to think of the backpassing, it being, instead of it going to North Wildwood, it would actually stay in its own city to build its own dune. So let's actually break down the project itself. The main idea behind this project is to build a 16-foot tall dune system that goes the entire length of the Wildwoods, roughly about 25,000 feet, and would have a base that is 75 feet wide. This would stop most of the storms that come through. That they'll put vegetation on top of that, and it would really create a system in which if a horrible hurricane were to go full blast into the Wildwoods, like originally, I mean, Sandy was supposed to do that, we wouldn't have the destruction that we would be seeing that happens, well, what did happen in North Jersey with Sandy, which they saw obviously flooding and fires and a lot of horrible things that cost a lot of money. And so this project is trying to prevent that. Before we dive deeper into the mock-ups of this project, I wanted to go over the concerns because there's a lot of concerns here. Some from Wildwood and Wildwood Crest versus North Wildwood versus visitors versus locals. And so these are things that needed to be addressed because some of these are actually been holding things up for quite some time. The first one, which really goes back several years, is giving the permission to the state and the Army Corps of Engineers to actually build on the beach. Because people don't realize that if you actually own beachfront property, you own part of the beach in certain areas. And so in order for them to even get started with these projects, they would have to say to the homeowners, hey, we want to go ahead and build this 16-foot tall dune right here. We need your permission. A lot of homeowners were not okay with that. And while that's been taking a lot of time, we even saw the state kind of threaten eminent domain to get the project underway. And so some of that stuff has been cleared up, some of it not so much. But yes, people are quite upset to give up some of their views, especially if you are on the first level and you look straight out and you can see the water. Well, that dune, you might not see the water as well as you used to, or at least the beach. And so you've got the concerns from locals who have houses on there, which I completely understand. From the visitor's point of view, you're going to not be able to see the water or the beach as well as you used to be because, well, yes, there's a dune system kind of blocking that. And yes, you'd have to walk over the dunes to get over into the beach. A lot of people aren't really happy about that. You know, there are some in North Wildwood already. I personally don't mind it, but there are some people who maybe can't climb that as well, or it's hard to drag their stuff up it. There are building certain kind of ramps, which would make it a little bit easier. But yes, that is a concern. And then you've got the concerns that are from North Wildwood and concerns from Wildwood Crest and Wildwood, which kind of go hand in hand. As you may know, the Wildwoods are known for their big beaches. We have the largest, cleanest, free beaches in the state of New Jersey. I would actually almost say on the entire eastern coastline. And so because we have so much space and so much of literally resources right there, because you can host so many events, the city of Wildwood and Wildwood Crest have pretty much made it their thing to engineer those beaches for economic reasons. I mean, we've got the largest country concert on the East Coast here. We're able to put on, whether it be soccer events, frisbee events, all these kind of events that the city relies on that money in order to keep these events going. And of course, Wildwood Crest, they have I forget, we actually measured it a while back and how long their beaches are. And so for them to remove that beach is obviously a giant draw because the beaches are smaller. And as Wildwood Crest says, there's a lot of ecological problems with this, which could cause a lot of those areas in which have been built up for how many decades. It could cause a problem with that. In a letter to the DEP commissioner, we saw the mayor of Wildwood Crest say the significant reduction of beach space, which not only threatens the capacity of our beaches to accommodate the anticipated thousands or hundreds of visitors, but also jeopardizes the overall experience of beachgoers. That, by the way, in his quotes, he also talks about the implications that could be happening to the Crest Pier, which, by the way, does not sit at 16 feet. That entire decking would have to be ripped up, new pilings would have to be put in, things would have to be extended. Essentially, they would have to rebuild that entire pier in order to meet the heights. Because at this very moment, and don't quote me, I think it sits maybe at either 10 feet or 11 feet. So that's 5 feet higher. I mean, I'm 5'2½". That is really very much taller. So they would have to rip down that entire thing and rebuild it, which I think right now would sit roughly around $2 million. This whole project, by the way, is costing $40 million. But the mayor continues by saying that this raises alarms regarding potential ecological disruptions, in addition to reducing the number of accessible crossovers. He continues by saying that dune provides a vital habitat for a numerous amount of species, which could also be put at risk because they're going to be ripping down the old ones and building new ones. I have to admit, he's not wrong. You're ripping out old vegetation. There's a lot of animals that live back there. I mean, you walk there in the morning, you see so many rabbits running in and out. We also sometimes see foxes on the beach. Yes, it does actually happen. We have a couple resident foxes on the entire island, which is kind of interesting. Like I mentioned before, Wildwood is known for its big beaches, and now they host so many events on it that taking away a lot of the sand is clearly going to be a problem for them. And that's what the mayor is saying here. The mayor of Wildwood says, we've always had some reserve with regards to this project, saying primarily because we've turned the beach into an economic engine for not just the city, but the island, but also for the county and for the state. There's no one that comes close to the amount of events that we have on our beach. Once again, he's 100% correct. You rip out so much of the beach, you can't have things such as the Race of Gentlemen, the Barefoot Country Music Festival, and monster trucks. I mean, you'd be taking out a lot of these massive events that we're known for down here that not only drive sales and money into the city, but also all the businesses, whether it be hotels, Airbnbs, restaurants, Maurice Piers. That would be shrink down a lot. But now we see a different point of view from North Wildwood, where the mayor says that this is a 50-year guarantee plan, that if a storm were to come into our area, we would be safe. If we were to turn down a project like this and a storm comes through, well, that could cause problems, because then FEMA and other agencies could say, well, you guys had the opportunity to stop this from happening, and you said no, so you guys are held responsible or liable for this. In a quote, the North Wildwood mayor says, "My point to the other mayors is that you're making a 50-year decision now. If a town turns down a project, it could impact federal emergency declarations down the road. What is the impact on flood insurance in the town? If that train leaves the station and we're not on it, there's no saying if that train is ever coming back." And so you're understanding the different points of views from visitors, locals, you've got all the cities making their own comment on it. And now we need to talk about the actual physical plan, because besides seeing a 16-foot tall dune going 25,000 feet throughout the entire island, we're also losing potentially up to 800 to 900 feet of beach. Something that I really don't think is really talked about much, because as you're going to see in these plans I'm going to share with you, there are A, B, and C areas in which the Army Corps of Engineers could borrow sand from, and then from there to build these dunes, because, well, the sand needs to come from somewhere. And while many people have suggested to dredge out in the ocean and bring in that sand, the current plans as it stands, they're going to be borrowing the sand from the foot of the beach and going back. And depending on how much sand they need, they're going to borrow from 3 different stages. This, by the way, is something that's always been in the plan. When the feasibility study was first put together in 2015, it was always planned for them taking the sand from the front of the beaches, because a lot of people complain, oh, the beaches are too big, they're way too big, or hey, the pier, the Crest Pier, there's no water under it anymore. And so this would have been a win-win to maybe make the beaches a little bit smaller and still get water in certain areas. But in doing so, it seems like they definitely need a lot more sand than what was originally kind of thought. We are now starting to look at the mock-ups. And as I said before, this is 95% completed. The really only big difference that we're going to see here is probably where the sand is going to be pulled from. And for this project, we're going to start here in North Wildwood, which I have to say, for North Wildwood and Wildwood Crest, the dune system that's currently there, it's going to follow exactly the same path. Wildwood itself doesn't really have dunes, so that's going to be the big change for Wildwood. But looking here, you can see on JFK Avenue, the dune system following the same path. It's going to go where the current bulkhead is. That bulkhead is kind of sharp at the very edge. That is supposed to be ripped out. That's supposed to be an issue. The New Jersey DEP says that is a problem. It's actually going to cause more issues when it comes to all that sand. And essentially, it's going to undermine it. That's what they're saying, so I'm just telling you what I've read. But yeah, it's just going to follow the same exact bulkheads. You'll still have the same accesses to the beach that you usually do. Different kind of ramps at different sections. It goes the same way past 16th Street, all the way down till it hits Seaport Pier, in which the dune will then travel right across the other way. I know Seaport Pier might have an issue with that just because, well, they wanted to do a beer garden. I know that was the plans a while ago. Not quite sure if they will still be able to do that afterwards. Then it will go over towards where Seaport Pier is. There'll be a small little dune in between Seaport Pier. There'll be a small little dune in between Seaport Pier and Surfside Pier, just like there'll be a even smaller one between Surfside Pier, and then from there all the way over to Dinosaur Beach or whatever you want to call it. People call it Hunts Pier, Old Hunts Pier, New Hunts Pier, before the dune then picks up on the other side. Now this is where beach access gets a little wonky because, yes, this is once again 75 feet wide and 16 feet tall. This area has multiple streets that you used to be able to cross and go straight down on. From this angle, it looks like there's only going to be 4 different entrances to the beach. So you could see one on Popular, you can see another one on Maple, then Wildwood Avenue, and then Oak Avenue. So one of those kind of like, okay, this is, not as much access as you usually would. And it's closer to the boardwalk, but it still allows for the marble tournaments. The dog park would actually have to be completely ripped out. Not sure if that would be placed on the other side of the dunes or somewhere else on the island. It actually became a very big fan favorite, so I doubt that'll be completely gone. The dune would then continue through Maury's Mariners Pier before then hitting Adventure Pier. You can see how the dune kind of ends, then comes back over on the other side. That's where the monster trucks are. Not sure if they would have to move that. That is something that is still up in the air. Before then going around the convention center, this is one dune that actually does exist in Wildwood. Goes around the convention center and continues all the way down. Once again, not every single street is going to have an open access to the beach. It will then join up in Wildwood Crest at Cressy Avenue at the existing dune system before then continuing the dune system all the way down. It looks like from these blueprints that every single street there will have access. It just matters where it's going to be. And then we'll go all the way this way up until they hit Diamond Beach, essentially. I'm just fast forwarding through these slides because there really is no difference. I just want to show you guys the end here. You can see here the ending point of the one dune before then going here and ending right here in Diamond Beach. But the big thing about these blueprints, which you can't see from the way I just showed you, are what are called the borrowing areas. These borrowing areas will start at Magnolia Avenue and make their way all the way through the crest. And as I said before, they're broken up into 3 different sections, A, B, and C. A are the sections that 100% they have to take from. B being sections which they could take from depending what the project calls for. And then C is, we may need this, we may not need this. It all depends on where we are with the project. And it's this part of the project that I think everyone has the most problem with. Because if you really truly start looking at this, you start going, wait a minute. That's a lot of the beach. There's a lot of that missing. I mean, you look at the back of where Mariners Pier ends, you only see, what, maybe 200 to 300 feet before you're at the water? Which, I mean, is a lot different. Same thing with Adventure Pier. Obviously, the curvature of things is a lot more than 300 feet. It actually might be somewhere in the realms of 500 feet to 600 feet. Even at the convention center, if you were to look and see Area C, you could see only a couple hundred feet from behind it. But those are Area C's. Area A's are really that cut straight down from Wildwood downwards towards Wildwood Crest before then cutting straight down towards Diamond Beach. And on this map, just so you have a good understanding of what these areas are, Area A has the angles in which goes from higher, I want to say, high left down to low right, while Area B has like squiggly lines, and then Area C has the high from the right down to the left. So this is A, B, and this is C, if that makes any sense if you're looking at the charts here. So there would be a significant amount of beach removed, but the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers argue that this plan is the most beneficial way of taking that sand versus obviously doing any kind of dredging, and it's the most easy, accessible, and cheaper way of doing it. Well, Wildwood and Wildwood Crest says, but you're taking all this sand. You're taking all of our beach. A lot of people could argue a few different things here. Some people don't like doing that walk. A lot of people say, well, on the crest, people don't really use that much of a beach. It's not like it's packed all the way back to the dune. Like it's, North Wildwood, for example. They got smaller beaches, so it's always up to the dune. In Wildwood and in Wildwood Crest, that's not the case, but Wildwood uses their beaches for many events, and Wildwood Crest, not as much. The sand that would be taken from Wildwood and Wildwood Crest would be used to build the dunes not only in their area, but also in North Wildwood and in Diamond Beach, mostly because their beaches just are a lot smaller. If they were to take several hundred feet from North Wildwood, there would be no beach, and then we have beach erosion problems and more bulkheads. It would actually just make the situation worse. And I also want to add in here that many people would argue that, okay, let's say that we do take, let's just estimate and say 600 feet of beach. The way that beach erosion works and the migration of sand from North Jersey down the line, could be a decade, could be more than that, that sand would potentially return back, especially because of the way that it would be cut. It would go straight and then backwards, which would mean all that sand would come down and fill in all this space. It would just take a while. You know, some estimate that it's about 6 feet a year or a couple feet a year of beach that the Wildwoods gain from all the beach erosion. I mean, if you look at a map of New Jersey, you can kind of see the curvature in New Jersey. And as that sand comes down with storms, it just gets loaded up here in the Wildwoods. But there you go. That is the 5 Mile Island project, or whatever you want to call it. Hereford Inlet to Cape May Inlet. It's like 2 different names. Realistically speaking, everything's kind of up in the air. And Army Corps of Engineers, they want to get started on this. They want to put the bids out this sometime this year, by the end of the year, and start next year. It's going to take a long time to do this project. And yes, work is going to be going on during the summer because this is a necessity in order to make sure that if hurricanes come through, if we take a direct hit, we're going to be fine. As I said before, some people argue there's a lot more cons than positives here, but I want to know in the comment section below, what do you think about this project? Do you like it? Do you understand it? Do you hate it, but you also understand it, or do you just hate it and you're like, no, we're not doing this here? Look, as the world is changing and these storms are getting worse, we do need to protect ourselves, so this is something that could help. My mindset would be is that if we're able to do this in which it doesn't reduce the beaches that much and we could just dredge it in from the ocean, then why not do that? But once again, tell me what you guys think in the comment section below. And I apologize for this being a longer video. I could actually go in more detail. I was trying to dumb it down a little bit because some of it I don't even understand. I went through all the articles and read this entire report, which this report, oh my gosh, how many pages was this? 76 pages of jargon that I've never heard or understand. Talking about vegetation, talking about how this needs to be this, the berm here, this. There was a lot. There was a lot. But once again, let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and give this video a thumbs up. I'll see you on the beach, which it is cold out. That's why I have my sweater on. Yes, I had to. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Yeah, I got my Mr. Rogers sweater on. Anyway, I'm Joey. Stay safe. I'll see you later. Bye.